move to the next subject. Now, I would my objective of today's session is to give you an introductory view of the things, and then I would request my co-speaker Avinash to get much deeper into many of these things, right? So with this context of the utility of blockchain in the real world, let's get into defining dApps. And you may have heard this term several times before as well. So what exactly is decentralized application? So like we said, decentralized applications are applications which are not having any centralized control, which are not supposed to have any centralized control into any of the component of the application. What does it really mean? It means that, for example, when you compare a centralized application to a decentralized application, what really happens? And there are enormous number of examples of centralized applications. For example, the application that you use to interact with your bank, for example, the application that you interact with for the social media requirements, the applications which are there for you to do retail shopping on the internet, right? All these are centralized applications where the control lies in one central entity. Now, there is no issue in this control, but then there is huge amount of issue because we have seen the excessive, the power corrupts. Now, when you have got accumulated excessive power within you, then definitely, there are chances that, this gets misutilized, this gets misappropriated. And that really has happened, umpteen number of times in the history. Now, that's where I think decentralized applications are the applications which are supposed to, and I'm using the term supposed to very consciously, because in the current world of decentralized application, there are still some extent of centralization when it comes to front end, for example, right? If you go and make your application completely decentralized, but you host your front end on some centralized server, or for example, cloud server, then you are not a centralized application. So we'll get more deeper into that, but essentially, this is what really a decentralized application means. And I mentioned about applications which are there in the central world, where you have got a data center, your servers host the database, your servers also host the backend code, and all the control of these databases, all the control of these applications, whether these are backend applications or whether they are the front end part of the application, everything is controlled by one entity. And you are, at the helm of being manipulated at any point in time if your interest clashes with the interest of the central entity. Now, that liberty is coming to you by using dApps. Now, these dApps are basically a mechanism in which you function as efficiently, and in fact, in some way better than the centralized systems, but without being controlled by one central entity. Now, that's the thing that the world is loving, and that's where you will see today that there is a replica of any application in the central world that's being made in decentralized world. There are several other benefits which we'll talk about, but in essence, this is what it is. Okay. Now, if you really look at the core features of dApps, what are those? There are several others, but one thing that we love about decentralized application world is open source. And that's really, in fact, one of the things that I have always appreciated in this world is that people do not constrain themselves from sharing their source code with the world. And it has got one major advantage, that there is a term called composability. Now, composability in blockchain world is basically where you go and use something which is already built by somebody, and you can go and build on top of that, such as if you know about the Lego blocks, where you go and fit in two components and make something like that, which is really working model. That is what is something, and one of the reasons why this environment has been thriving for so many years is the open source culture. Everybody believes in, and I think that is something which is very, very important. We talked about decentralized nature of the applications. Now, this decentralized really could mean several things. Now, first of all, at the infrastructure layer, with the blocks, or the blockchain upon which the applications are built, they could be Ethereum, they could be Solana, they could be Avalanche, they could be layer 2 applications such as Arbitrum, Optimism, or the ZK-based blockchains. They could be anything. But the way these blockchains function, they are truly decentralized. There is no single person who comes and says, okay, this is going to be the next block. No, this doesn't happen like that. The decision is arrived at by all of these people working together, and the majority wins in a consensus way. Now, that is one. Second thing is that I also see decentralization in a way that when you host your application on top of these blockchains, then also you have to think of the point that you should not be, you should not be checked or controlled by any entity, whether your backend is completely decentralized, whether are you under the influence of some entity or group of entities. Now, there are so many deeper thoughts which we will talk about when we kind of move further in this in this course. But for today, what I'm keeping myself to to the extent that you are not, nobody has the power and authority to come and check you that, look, you cannot do this, right? But the system or the community can decide, as a whole. That is very important. Third thing, and typically we see that one of the most important things, and I know Avinash will cover a lot more detail into this point, that in Web2 based system and model, what really happens that the incentive or the monetization of your work, that does not come to you, to a large extent. So, for example, you are the creator of something, you should get 100 rupees, for doing that work, but you get 10 rupees for doing that work. And that is true in most of these Web2 systems. Now, if you look at the Web3 based system where you go and talk about incentivization, so incentivization of the effort is done, whether it is block creation, whether it is participating in a decision, whether it is anything. But then this system is driven by incentives. And this system also has got a checkpoint with when you do not behave properly, you get penalized. Now, that's how this system works. And finally, it is a protocol based. Now, what exactly is a protocol? Protocol means a set of rules, Now, you can very well imagine that if you are working under the influence of a centralized entity, there is one person who takes all these decisions. No problem in that. And things are pretty straightforward. But the moment you come to a system when there is no one person or entity who can decide for everybody else, then the chaos comes there. Chaos happens, right? So in that situation, what really happens, the system, agrees upon a set of rules, that these are the rules which everybody will follow. And then the system keeps on working. Now, if there is a change in the rule that has to happen, then all these people come together and then they change the rule also. They can do that as well, right? But at the same time, you have to say that whatever happens here happens as a part of, a group which is following a rule. Very, very important. So some of these things you should definitely keep in mind before you get deeper into the building part.